my name is Suzanne Duval. I'm known to a lot of people as Susie. I was born in 1957 and I've lived all my life in Cardiff and I was brought up in Ely. Brought up in Cardiff all my life, born in Cardiff, brought up in Cardiff, and I've always lived in Ely. And my grandfather was African. We believe he's from Sierra Leone. I've never met my grandfather. He died, you know, ever before I was born. And so that's my cultural background. But as for having an African culture or an African way of life, we weren't brought up in that culture. We was only brought up Western. So my heritage, my ways, everything about me is Welsh, and about my family is Welsh as well. And I'm something like, well, maybe 4th generation Welsh. Gosh, what do you mean, like as family life, or do you mean in family life? Yes, I can remember, and I remember I was small, and my nana, we always had a lot to do with my nana, and I was down her house, and I remember being like in a pushchair and crying and thinking, I wish somebody would do something with me, like pick me up or do something. And I can always remember that, sitting in a pushchair and just crying. So that's a very early memory. Other memories I have are just like living with my brothers and my sisters and my mother and my father then, because I haven't seen my father since I was 8 years old, so that's, you know, that's like a century ago now, isn't it? But I can remember being brought up with, you know, in a large household and just being part of a group, because I'm one of 7, I'm the 3rd of 7 brothers and sisters. So I remember just going to school, playing in the street, because you used to always play in the street then, chalking, and the neighbours would, you know, come out because you're chalking outside their front door, outside their house, and playing hopscotch and skipping, and we'd play up the street for ages. And we had a really large garden out the back, and my mother's not one for the garden, and the grass used to be taller than we were. And I remember we used to play hide and seek out the back garden, and well, it took you ages to find anyone in that tall grass. And then sometimes my mother would say, "Oh, you can have a picnic out the back." Well, we were a very poor family, and I don't even know if anybody bought butter in those days, because we used to have Echo Marge and a loaf of Wonder Loaf. I don't know if you ever remember that bread, Wonder Loaf. Used to have stars on the greaseproof paper you would have, isn't it? Blue and white greaseproof paper. Or the family loaf. My nana always bought family loaf. So my mother would do bread in Echo Marge, and then cut the bread in triangles, and then make a big cone out of newspaper, and then she put that in it. But we only ever had sterilised milk. No, I never liked it. We only ever had sterilised milk, not fresh milk. And you can cut this bit out if you want to, but Mama always said fresh milk was only for white people. So we always had steady. So she'd fill a bottle with a bit of steady like that, fill it with water. I was thinking, I can't drink it, I hate it. But anyway, we'd have a bottle of that to go up the back, and this big newspaper cone of bread and Marge cut in triangles, and sit in the long grass, and that was our bit of a picnic as kids, and we just loved it. We had nothing. We were as smart as the people who gave us clothes, because everybody in the street would give us clothes, and you know those things, or shoes, or so we were as smart as whatever anybody gave us, really. And my nana was very good seamstress, so she made clothes for us as well. So we had that as well. But happy. Right, at school, especially we never went to nursery. My mother didn't believe in sending kids to nursery, so we went from the infants. And so that's from the age of 5. And there was our family, and then there wasn't 7 of us then. There was 5 of us, me, and I got 3 sisters and my one brother then. And that's how many of us there was then. And we were one of 2 black families in Ely, and they went to the same school as us as well. And it wasn't until I went to school that I was aware that I was black. I knew I was, and Mama was a different colour to people, but you never give it a second thought. Mama was just Mama, and we were just who we were, and my aunties and uncles were just people. And then I went to school, and it was called names nearly all the time. But Mama, you see, Mama was from the docks, Sango was the family name. It's a large family. Mary Sango, or Little Mary, as the people knew my mother. And so she was brought up like hard anyway, because Mama was the only girl and she had 5 brothers, and then my nan had another four girls. So Mama was brought up, you know, like a tiny woman, but tough. And that's how she brought us up when we were young. So if we didn't go home from school and say somebody called us a name or go home crying, Mum would go mad. She'd hit us for that. So we fought in school, always fought. You know, the names they called us, we always fought them. So I had that right the way through the infants and right the way through the juniors. But then when I went to big school, the senior school, I never had it. Only all those years, so that's from the age of 5 till 11, I was fighting nearly all the time in school. And I remember one big fight I had, and I was just in the junior school, I was 7, and the boy I had to fight with, he was 11, he was in, like I was in standard 1, he was in standard 4. They got different names for the classes now, haven't they? But I remember I started fighting with him because I'm not frightened of anyone, you see, because we'd fight each other, so we were more frightened of Mama, we were, never mind who's going to say anything to us outside. But I remember having a fight with him right from the school, right the way down to Mama's. Oh, and it ended up with him throwing me in the hedge. And that's how the fight ended, because he threw me in the hedge. But the Mum was saying, you can even cut this bit out as well, because they meant next day, like I say, I was 7. And then Mum was sending me down the shop. Well, this boy, Leonard his name was, he used to live down the road from us. I had to pass his house, and he was a big boy he was. And like I say, he was 11. So I thought, what if I sees Leonard down the shop and he tries to get me? So I remember, and in those days we always had bread and butter knives. Now you've got fish knives, aren't they, the little knives? We always had the flat bread and butter knives. So I put one of them in the carrier bag. So I thought, if I sees Leonard, I'm going to stab him. Just matter of fact, I'm going to stab him, but I didn't see him. I didn't see him, so Leonard's still alive and I'm not in prison. So that's how it was. But remember, and we always fought in school, because if you went to the teacher and said, oh, say they call me whatever, the teacher would say, sticks and stones, Suzanne, sticks and stones. Well, not sticks and stones. We used to batter them. Oh, Mum would hit us. Right, let me think. Teenage life was good. It was good. I did have a good teenage life. We went, there used to be, well, it's still there, a church in Ely called the Resurrection. And on a Sunday and a Wednesday, Father Morgan, who was the vicar there then, used to run a disco there. Now, everybody used to go to that. And so that's where I used to go from about the age 11, 12, till I was about, I suppose, 14 or 15. We used to go between there and Trelai Youth Club. And I live on the old side of Ely. You've got Caira and Ely. So I used to go for Caira for the youth club and go to the Res on a Wednesday and a Sunday. And I just loved it. And that's where I suppose, I was always brought up with music, you see. Mama always used to love sing, can't sing. But I'm exactly the same as Mama. I'm always singing. Can't sing, but I'll even sing at the adverts, always. So, and then Georgie, that was my Uncle George, that's Mama's brother. I used to go down my Nana's all the time, and he lived with Nana, and he loved the Ink Spots and the Mills Brothers and Country and West and Frankie Lane. Everybody. Nat King Cole was one of his favourites. So I was brought up with all that type of music, you see, all the crooners and all those things. And it was every word to every song from those eras, even from the 30s, I suppose. So, yeah, brought up in a house of music, dancing, loved to dance, but Mama loved to dance as well, you see. So always dance. And I remember as a youngster being in a nightclub as a called go-go dancers then. So I was a bit of a go-go dancer. I used to get paid for that. And not a pole dancer. Let's not get that one wrong. And so I just love dancing, and I still love to dance. So yeah, so that was my teenage years, I suppose. Music, dancing, of course, family arguments, because you can't help arguing with your sisters and your brothers, isn't it? Somebody's always snuck your shoes out, or I've snuck their shoes on because I'm going out, or do you know those things? And you swear blind you never had them. So yeah, those arguments, and Mama was in the middle always, and but yeah, good years, but overcrowded, I would say, the house, because Mama and then in the end 7 of us kids in a 3-bedroom house. And yeah, I heard somebody on the news the other day, because with the the benefits and all those things going to stop, a woman, she had 7 kids, and she was complaining that the 4-bedroom house wasn't big enough, and £2,000 a month she was on, and if they cut that, I thought, my God, in our day we had nothing. Mum might have had, I don't even think she had £30 a week, and I know it's all relative, but You know, even now, you can look in Iceland and say, oh, you can feed a family of 4 for £5. There was no such thing as special offers when we were kids. There was no such thing. So, you know, once the money was gone, the food was gone. Do you know, hard times, but I suppose that's given me and my family, my brothers and sisters, an appreciation, because we're not materialistic. Yeah, we love things and we love nice things, but we still talk about when we had nothing. So I'm not covetous for things. I don't want to hoard things or get everything I can, but I just appreciate things. And the old money, that's what I remember, and I still convert. Even though we're decimal, and I was in school when the decimal come out, I convert everything to the old money. So sometimes, even when I'm with my kids, you know, when they're 24 and nearly 34, my daughter, oh, get these biscuits. I go, I'm not paying 30 bob for biscuits. You could buy a week's worth of food when I was a kid for that. So I suppose in a way, you asked me about my childhood, my teenage years, and even, you know, getting older to the woman I am now, I suppose, live in the past somewhat, with a lot of those things, with the appreciation, with the seeing the avarice that is today, still comparing prices to the old pennies and half a crown. Do you know those things? Oh, yes. My first job was in Littlewoods Pools. Gosh, I don't even know if people do the pools anymore. I don't know since the lottery have come out, but that was my first job, and I hated it. Oh, because it was massive. It was a very big organisation, I suppose, very big company, and they'd be on the, I suppose they call it the shop floor. And I don't know, many of us worked on that shop floor, just loads, you know, checking the coupons and doing whatever. But the atmosphere was so, and I don't know if you're going to kind of say this, so bitchy, and people might, if they want to say something about you, you know, I don't know, they didn't care. I suppose they were brazen in the way, their manner was rude. But of course, I wasn't standing for all that rudeness, was I? I wasn't brought up like that. So I got to open my mouth again, and I think I stuck here 3 months. I wasn't staying there. And then I left. I think the first year I left school, I had about 4 jobs. Because in those days as well, if you didn't like a job, you can just walk into another job. So then I left Littlewoods Pools after about 3 months. Then I went to, I think, Lionites, used to make jewellery boxes. Oh, Mum, I loved that, because we used to bring like the broken ones home or buy them cheap. Mum must have had about 20 of them, and she loved them. So I loved Lionites. I don't know, I worked in loads of factories, even though, and that was the thing, you see, I was a scholar in school, but because we were poor, and Mum didn't understand, and I always had like good school reports, but whether you had an A or an E, it was all the same to Mum as well. Do you know what I mean? And I always had A's and B's. So rather than stay on in school and do exams and all those things, like you've seen other people doing, my priority was to get a job, get some clothes and shoes for myself, and contribute to the house. So that's what I did. So I left school without any qualifications. And instead of leaving school at 16, I left at 15, because my sister had left, and I loved my sister, and whatever she did, I wanted to do. But she was 16. Well, I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back then, because she wasn't going. So that was it. So I just got a job. So all the qualifications, whatever I've achieved today, is as an adult. I could, you know, I come to appreciate the education, or the value of education, even though I had a good enough education, I suppose, I didn't make anything of it, because I never had that guidance or the opportunity. I know when I was about 8 years old, I think it was in Standard 2, 4 of us were picked to do a scholarship for Howell School, and I was one of them, and I passed it. A big deal. How was I ever going to get to Howells? Nobody had cars in those days anyway. You know, I lived in Ely. Howell School is over in Llandaff. How would I ever get there? How would Mama get the money for the uniform? So even though I passed the exam, so, do you know, the opportunities just weren't there. So today, we always just encourage my kids. My kids think they can fly. You know, they both have degrees. And I think my daughter's the first one in the whole family. You know, I'm from a very large family with cousins. Everybody have gone to university and have a degree. Well, I came into the voluntary sector, I suppose by accident, because don't even know the difference then. Voluntary sector, private sector, public, I don't know the difference then. But what had happened, so I always had bad jobs. Like I say, I'd done a bit of dancing and factories, cleaning. I did all those things. And then I got married, and I had my daughter, and then my marriage broke up. So there's just me and her, And I thought, you know what? If I got to work most of my life to support me and a baby, I'm going to be good at something. So that's what started me. And I thought, you know what? I see kids I went to school with, and I was always in the top streams of school, and I seen kids who weren't even in my streams with jobs in the bank or whatever. And I thought, Sush, you used to have a brain on you. Do something about it. So that's what I did. I went to the women's workshop. Before I went to the women's workshop, I did a maths course. I think I did some English as well just to brush up on those skills. And I did a year in the women's workshop. And then from there, I was temping for nearly a year, I think, in HTV, doing administration. And then from HTV, that's when I went on to what was called Full Employ then, which, as we know, became New Employ Wales. And I started off as a receptionist there, and I ended up being a PA then to the general manager, and I was also a positive action officer as well. So that's what got me. I think I was driven then. Having a young baby to bring up, thinking, right, to support us, I'm going to be good at something. I was on the social. I thought, I'm not looking for fiddles and cleaning. I'm just bringing in these pennies. I'm going to do something good. And I want to be a role model for my daughter as well. And she was only, she was 9 months old when my marriage broke up. So that's what set me on the road, I suppose, to being so-called professional then. So I've always done like night courses. Even when I was at New Employ, I've done, loads of courses, and I've always done night work and night courses anyway, just because I think it's hard work, isn't it? Bringing up a child, working full time, doing the stuff at night. But I always thought I'd rather do it all now because there's light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there? So I'm driven in a way, I think, and that's what it is. Okay, so that was my first job, I suppose, in the voluntary sector then, wasn't it? And then I was seconded for 2 years to the Equal Opportunities Commission because I was the development officer for Wales for an organisation called Mawn Cymru, MEWN, Minority Ethnic Women's Network, and I was the development worker there. And I did, it's already been started, but I had to finish off writing this business plan and those things for them to get funding, and I was successful, and that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. Oh my God. Business plan, I couldn't even spell it, never mind do, and I nearly fell through the floor when the director said, oh no. I go, what? Anyway, it was successful to the lottery, and I got 3 years funding for Mawn Cymru, and that's how that started up as an organisation. So that was like a feather in my cap, even though I didn't apply for any of the jobs at Mawn Cymru. And then I went back to New Employ, but not for long. New Employ Wales was starting to close down then, with funding was beginning to stop. And I seen a job advertised for a project manager for a WETU, which is the BME mental ill health group, and it was the only organisation of its kind in Wales. And I applied for the job as project manager, and I got the job. I was being made redundant, I think, from New Employ, say, on Wednesday. I went for the interview on the Monday for a WETU, and they told me Monday afternoon I had the job. So, wow. So that set me, and that's going back, this is 13 years ago now. And then, so I worked, of course, with a WETU for 10 years, and then after 10 years, a WETU, the organisation, and Carden Vale Coalition of Disabled People we joined together to become Diverse Cymru as it is now, and I'm a director of operations at Diverse Cymru. So that's my history, really, from those humble beginnings as well. Working in the market, which I loved, on the fruit and veg. So yeah, loads of jobs. So if this ended tomorrow, well, I know I can get a job cleaning or work in the fish shop. Somebody would have me, isn't it? Even if it's not at this level, but I can always work. I'm not precious about those things or titles, really. It's about providing for my family. So that's how I see it. This means to an end. Well, I think that's because the docks as a port and the seamen, because I think that's how my nana met my grandfather, as a seaman, and so of course all the different nationalities, and I think that might be the world over where different nationalities might live in that type of docklands area. I don't know, because I don't have experience of those things, But so I think that's how that's come about. And then the fact that people can live together, and I just think is, I don't know, it's just people's families. And I think what happens is it's a Docklands area, and because people are going to come ashore, there's going to be entertainment laid on for them. So on about maybe nightclubs, pubs, cafes, and of course, if you've got a business mind, that's quite lucrative, isn't it? Because you're thinking there's a lot of seamen come in there from the thing. We'll open a Danish cafe, or we'll open a Swedish cafe, or a Somali cafe. So I think that's how it came to be. And of course, when you live in an area and other people come in, other people are always quite exotic to you, I think, and quite attractive. So, people want to hook up with these exotic, so-called attractive people. So that's how I think it all just comes about, really. So I think that's what's happened. And of course, I think the area just flourished then, really. So people, because my family are from the docks, and when they knocked down a load of the beautiful grand houses in the streets, didn't they, down the docks? And that's how my nana and my mother and her brothers and sisters ended up coming to Ely, because they sent them to Ely. I think Llanrummy was another area, and we just happened to be Ely. But of course, I was never brought up down the docks. I'm only from Ely. But, I still got some relatives who live down the docks. Yes, I do. You know what? I hadn't even given a thought to the religious aspect of things. So I can really, I don't know if I'm qualified to even answer about that. All I know, when I used to work down the docks, one of the things that used to be said, and on about this separatism now, was, and maybe this is going to be cut out, I don't know if it's controversial, but a lot of the older Somali people used to say that the younger Somali people were giving the Somalis a bad reputation, because they were, okay, maybe gat was something that was chewed over the while, but it was controlled, maybe like we would control alcohol and not do it to the excesses or those things. But they remember some of the older Somali people used to come in and speak to us, would say, in my days, but we, in moderation and blah, 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 and behind closed doors, now they'll do it everywhere. And now there's some, I don't know, there's trouble or fighting or robbery or whatever. And it's these young ones. It's the young ones that's doing it, and they never want to be associated. So I think different generations, when they do different things or they got different actions to older people, including myself, I'm like with my kids and younger people. It was never like that in my day, and there's too much of it, and there's no boundaries. So I think the conflict can be a bit like that. But I do think that years ago, I don't know, I think people's morals and people's values were pretty much the same, I think. Youngsters and older people, youngsters would still say, oh, good afternoon, Mr. Delgado, or hello, Mr. Blah. Now it's hiya, Bob and Sue and Chris, and I don't know, it's just different. And not that there's any disrespect in those things, because I call everybody by their first name, to tell you the truth. But I just think values and models seem to be more on a par before. And then when the younger, every generation comes up, there's something a bit different. I think it can make conflict. But now, because nothing's kept a secret now, nothing seems to be swept under the carpet now, everything's talked about, everything is publicised, there are no boundaries now, I think you hear more what goes on. So maybe there was conflict then. People didn't tend to either talk about it, or it was in smaller pockets. The good old days are the same as these old bad old days, I think. We just talk more about it, don't we? Because I think what happens with anyone, I think, really, when you all live together and families are brought up with other families, everybody knows each other and people look out for each other's kids and those things. But when you remove from your, I suppose, safety area, your comfort zone, into another area, you're viewed by that community as outsiders. And people are all suspicious of the outsiders, and especially maybe for a different colour as well, because they come up here with their curry and rice, they come up here smelling the garlic. Do you know, their attitudes, because I've heard, I'm just repeating attitudes and things that I've heard people say. So people are a bit hostile and they become, the communities that already live there might be tighter because they're talking about you. Now they're talking about this new family that's moved in, and have you seen all the kids they got, and you know, all those things. But and I think that's what happens with new people. And until you're there for a long time, I think you're never part of a community. It might be different if you have kids, because kids tend to play together. So I think that's a great, what you call, like, breaking down barriers, those things, because you might speak to each other for kids. But I do think it's that case of people are new, people are suspicious, especially if they're a different culture or can be a different colour, and people only don't know anything about those people, but they talk about a negative stereotype about those people, and of course all the people are all the same. So, you know, it's those things, and I think that's why there's no real community cohesion then, I suppose, at the beginning. And sometimes there can be, you know, we're a very accepted family in Ely, but we've been there donkey's years, we've been there over 50 years, do you know? But it wasn't like that for us for a long time. So I think maybe that's what happens. Okay. I don't know. See, what I always say, and maybe I'm biased, and I'm doing it, see, I've been doing it in my head and my hands all the time. Maybe I'm just biased, but I just love Cardiff and the people in Cardiff, and I always say I think we're very friendly. And I remember when I worked down in New Employ, down the docks, and that was us as New Employ Wales, but there used to be a head office in London. And when the people from London used to come down, because they'd have to come down for whatever reason, isn't it? I just got talking to some of them. I remember taking one of the accountants around to the stationers for whatever, and talking to the people on the way round, and then talking to the people like behind the counter. I remember him saying to me, "I can't believe how friendly you are, and how friendly people are." And I said, and I didn't know really understand what he meant, because it was no big deal. It's like second nature, going on, "Are you Nick?" To anyone, really, isn't it? And even just say, "Oh, you're gorgeous today," or do you know those things? But he thought that was strange. So, and a couple of people said, "Oh, you're so friendly in Cardiff." And I know a friend of mine who came here from, you know, was brought up abroad, and she said it's so friendly, and her mother comes, and she loves Cardiff. So I think that just reinforces what I think, that, you know, I know there's whatever, I won't say the words, isn't it? But, you know, they're everywhere. There's good and bad everywhere, isn't there? But in the main, I think we're very friendly. I think we're warm. I always say we're a nation of plodders and chatters, because that's what I am. And I always find lots of people are like me. So that's the good things about Cardiff. The bad things about Cardiff, I don't even know what to say, really. I don't know what to say about the bad things about Cardiff. I can say the bad things, but you can cut that out as well. But, you know, I think the negative things I got to say, thinking about, I suppose, organisations and structures, and as working in a charity, never having enough, or getting your wings clipped when the things you're saying or you're trying to do are so innovative and could make such a difference, but somebody's telling you no. So, you know, that the funding, people, all that. So that's all the negative things that I think about. But to live here, I don't know. And I think it's because I don't have enough experience of living somewhere else, or know enough about other areas. So I suppose in a way I got that village mentality where my mind's quite small and quite closed. But I don't know, I suppose. And things like housing, there's a shortage on housing, and maybe that is everywhere else in the United Kingdom. I don't know, you know, but there's a lot of there's not a lot of social housing here, so that's bad. I know living in Ely, there's not enough stuff for youngsters to do anyway. You know, we got a leisure centre, big deal. You know, that closes, I think, I can't remember what time it closed, like 8 o'clock, I think, and 6 o'clock, I think, on a Sunday. And, you know, so those things. So I can talk about Ely in that respect. I don't know about the rest of Cardiff, but not enough. There's not enough things to stimulate young people, or enough opportunities then. Because I know we got homegrown talent that go outside to get a job, kind of thing. So I suppose those things. Yeah, well, that still exists, and I know I know that still exists, and my experience of that is because of the work that I do, and my work is in BME mental health. So through what you call when people tell you stories, anecdotal evidence, I suppose, the things that I come across with our specific client group, the things they tell us, the things that they've experienced. You know, I know that it's alive and well and living in Cardiff and living in Wales as well, because one of the things we did as a WETU, we did a BME mental health like road show, I will say, around Wales, and we went to 6 of the 7 health board areas of Wales and talked to BME people about their good and bad experiences with mental health, with in the mental health field, then the mental health system, and some stories they told us were terrible. And even in Cardiff, we got a scheme for Cardiff and the Vale where we have paid support workers to support our specific client group, and some things that they've experienced are tremendous, and you would say unbelievable. And I can't believe, and maybe that's my naivety, that in the 21st century we're still dealing with like 17th century attitudes or whatever. It still can surprise me, Nick. And you know, I've been doing this 13 years. And I'm still going, oh my God, of course I believe it. But you don't want to believe that's going on. And it's one thing hearing it, and one thing of people's experience, but proving it is something else. Because I know some things that we say and we talk to people about, they would think you're making it up. You know, and one of the things that gives us evidence is that for 6 years, from 2005 to 2010, the Department of Health carried out something called Delivering Race Equality, and in England and in Wales. And on the 31st of March every year for those 6 years, they carried out a census on everyone with mental ill health and people with learning disability who are in psychiatric hospitals, whether they're NHS or private hospitals or people with community treatment orders, all those things. And every year in that census, the highest incidence are of black men. Used to be African Caribbean men, then it says mixed. So whatever that mixed heritage is. And we're 3 to 6 times higher incidence being in the mental health system, always diagnosed with schizophrenia. Our route into the mental health system is not is rare through the doctors or the community mental health team. It's usually through the judicial system. So all those things, you know, which is evidence, and is what do I say about the evidence? But it's documented. It's governmental evidence then, and that's from 2005 to 2010. So again, I always say, even when I was with a WET, and that's 13 years ago, but I'm still doing this same work. I'm sorry that we exist. We shouldn't have to exist. My particular job is policy and trying to ensure that health boards' policies are inclusive and best practices promoted, and you know, all those things. I wish I never had to do that. Do you know what I'm saying? It leaves me speechless really. And I know we're all human beings, and there's human error, and sometimes things can happen without malicious intent. But sometimes things are happening with such a closed mind. To say that I didn't realise can't cut it, and it just can't cut it. It's awful, isn't it? Awful. And with me, you say I take it personally, because I do. I'm black. My family's black. You're doing it to them. You're doing it to me. I think we seem to suffer more, or it looks like we're suffering more. There's somebody looking through the door. I bet that was Charles. I think it's a lot of social factors, the social issues, and I think is racism. You know, I call it all those things. Do you know, like that, the dripping water thing? Go like that. That can have a, you know, that can move a mountain, can it? Do you know that dripping water can make a ravine in a mountain, can it? And that's what I think how the impact of racism can be. How many times can you feel insulted, and in the end that you believe that you're nothing and made to feel nothing, and the words, because the words that they use to insult you are very harsh words that goes right through to you, like right through to your soul, that just destroys your self-esteem, can destroy your self-worth, Nick, and I really believe that. So imagine that coupled with maybe racism, coupled with, could be my family, except we broke the mold, being brought up in I suppose, you know, what you call like being poor, whatever the fancy words would be for that, social economic, like deprived then, poverty, being brought up in poverty, facing racism, maybe not living in a very nice area, struggling, maybe being from a broken home, or seeing maybe violence in your home all the time. So you might be seeing that terrible thing in your home and being poverty stricken, going outside to escape, but somebody's insulting you. I don't know, all that massive. And that's I think those things, because it's such widespread in us as black people, or in us as our black men, I think racism has to be the main factor, really, because regardless of what you are, I think, you know, when you think of all those protected characteristics or this in that spectrum, I mean, if you're black, gay, disabled, older, you know, you could be 4 or 5 things as one person. Now, all those strands face their own problems. You know, we know older people today, the problems they face. We know the type of things gay people can face. We know the type of things that, I don't know, do you know what I'm saying? So imagine you're one of those, and disabled. You only got to be one of them, never mind the 4 of them in one body. So I just think that. And then people, that's like I was saying earlier on about, if they don't know anything about that group of people, for example, then those negative stereotypes seems to be their template for you. So you really, you're a bit of a, you can be dismissed then. That's what I think about it. But I'm just surprised that intelligent people, and I'm talking about people in the institutions, that intelligent people still can have such a narrow view. And again, I think that comes down to my naivety, really, because I always expect better, and I really do. And I think sometimes maybe that's what's missing in practice. Humanity is missing in practice. Not, what do you call it when they say it's, something's so gone wrong. What's that expression? What's that expression? Remember when they was going to ban Baba Black Sheep and political correctness? Not about, that's right, that's what I was saying. So I think people in practice sometimes, it's not about, you know, they're not politically correct or they're not. It's about humanity. They've lost their humanity, Nick. And I really believe that. Seeing somebody as a person and treating them appropriately. Oh, I get so emotional about that, really.
That's why you got the job.
That's why I got a bed at Whitchurch. Okay. I don't know if, now, because I got no little children in school, I don't know if these things go on, but do enough schools, because I think everything starts with young people, okay? And sometimes, starting with people my age, belonging to earth, set in my ways, sounds like a good idea, but I can't be bothered, or I'm not going to do that, or do you know what I'm saying? So I think, I don't know if schools still do school trips now and taking kids to museums. Let kids see the type of things on display. Museums having projects, and the projects could be about I don't know, a day in the life of, what it's like to be a day in the life of, I don't know, an Arabic family, or the day in the life of whatever, but just opening up the world more to understand and know how other people live, other people's cultures. So it could be like school projects that's going on about other cultures. Unless, okay, I know in October we got Black History Month, but even Black History Month seems to be contained to me. Do you know? And I know you've been very involved anyway, Nikki, and I know that, and that's all across Wales. But why must we wait till October when, like you say, we've been here since the 17th century, we live here, we have our lives, we contribute to Wales. I see myself as a Welsh black woman. That is my heritage, that is my culture. So find out about us. I've always said, if you want to know about me, ask me. Find out about us, don't stereotype us, but let's have those cultural events, bring everybody together. Let's not wait for festivals all the time, because I think this is another stereotype about us, you see. You know, we're happy-go-lucky, we're always singing, dancing, clapping, laughing. Because if only I can sing us through the tambourine down Button Festival. Come on, there's more to my life than that. Do you know what I'm saying, Nick? Well, just that. So I think things starts off with youngsters, really. So opening up the schools and getting, and I don't even know, what do they give kids for school dinners? Do they have different, do you know what it's like, even if you had some different school meals, like not always cottage pie or fish and chips, for example. Let's have some food from other cultures in schools as well. I know years ago when Betty was in Mount Stewart School, they recognised lots of different faiths, lots of festivals, lots of things, and had lots of projects around things. Now, I don't think schools do that, but these are things that St Fagans could be involved with, that the museum could be involved with. Maybe the museum can go and visit those schools, especially the real multicultural schools. Let them go and see, and let them come with some projects maybe. So they don't know how to, if they don't know how, maybe schools can invite them to come. And not just schools, maybe colleges as well. And get young people involved in things. Let museums go and visit youth clubs. You see, because I think sometimes, the museums then, the people from the museums are paralysed. They're letting their fear paralyse them. They don't know what to do. They're frightened of doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. So if they don't know, then we have to motivate them to say, have you thought of these things? Have you thought of writing to, for example, I'm putting this out to the museum, have you thought of writing to Mount Stewart School and coming down and spending those 5 days with the kids, maybe a different person on a different day, just to see what goes on in the school, find out what different cultures in the school, and you think of a project that the kids and the school might like to be involved with, and not just the kids, maybe their families would like to be as well. So yeah, it's just helping them to open that door a little bit, isn't it?
Excellent.
But I just think we're people, and like, we don't have two heads. We do speak the same language. Most of us, English is our first language. Some people can go up in the sun and get even darker than we do. They even got tighter hair than we have. They have the injection in their lip, and it's called the Paris lip, would you know? I was called Dunlop in school because of my lips. I used to wear lots of plaits. I was called Vicar. They call it now, it's the Boderic. The Boderic! Nick, do you know what I'm saying? We're just people. I can never get my head around it, really. And there's good and bad in all of us. Black and white, men, women, young and older people. Good and bad in all of us.